Welcome into another whole hum edition of Sportball. It's your boy Sam. With me as always are Seth and Kyle, neither of which who even cracked a smile at that little joke I threw in there for them. But I was just testing if Seth was watching the Celtics game, and he is.
No, it's ads right now. I couldn't quite. You say ho hum?
Yeah.
Ho hum? Is that like? Does that mean in mediocre?
What is wrong with you? Are you just now secretly revealing that you've been a robot this whole time?
I know human things.
Kyle, let's go to you. I think let's throw it to you. I don't know what's going on over here.
As soon as I hopped on this call, I heard something about Rudy Gobert should be third in MVP voting. So I've kind of disengaged already.
Now all of our listeners have disengaged.
Well, not one. Matt Rossetti, who doesn't even know who Rudy Gobert is, and he's our number one fan. So,
and John Hollinger, if he's listening, which he certainly is.
Yeah. That's a great transition, though, because we will be talking about Rudy later in this podcast. Because this podcast is the NBA All-Stars. Our picks, the only ones that matter. Do we have a vote? Yes, as fans, which doesn't really matter.
And only
online,
for starters.
Online they only let us vote for starters, but we're going to also name our reserves in something that doesn't matter, which nothing on this podcast does. There will be 5 starters in each conference and 7 reserves. And you're like a little bit locked into positions because you can have 3 forwards and 2 guards for starting for each team. But I think we'll go around to getting whoever we want in there. I feel like I'm glad they took out the center, aren't you guys? Now it's just 3 forwards.
Basketball is a positionless sport at this point, so it really should just be the 5 best player or the 12, whatever the fuck you guys want to do, best players in each conference.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Although I do have 2 centers starting, so really it doesn't matter this year. But
this year,
it's also interesting. I wanted to bring up because usually we vote on this more than halfway into the season because of the schedule this year with COVID. They've only played less than half their season. I think I read 37%. So, I mean, this is definitely all small sample size for this, and I feel like almost some of these picks might age like fine milk over the rest of the season. Probably not the starters, but some of the reserves, I think. But we still got to discuss
milk in sub-zero degree temperatures, but also the milk be freezing cold, not just like regular coldness of milk, but like
what is he saying right now?
On the verge of freezing.
I'm sorry, you want me to go somewhere where it's cold and drink milk that's almost freezing but not quite?
I'm asking if you ever have.
No.
I did the other night. It doesn't taste good. It doesn't taste like normal milk. I don't know what it is.
You got to explain the whole scenario. I don't understand.
Picture this. It was 2:30 in the morning, and all I could think about were NFTs. And the only thing that goes good with an NFT at 2:30 in the morning is a tall glass of milk. We hadn't brought the milk in from the outside fridge at this point, so it's sitting out in the garage, which I don't know at that point had to have been maybe 2 degrees outside, if that.
Yeah.
Went out there to get some. It wasn't frozen yet, like it wasn't slushy, but you could tell it was on the verge. Didn't taste good at all. Not good milk when it's that cold.
That's interesting. I would think that would be good. Nice and refreshing.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm also curious for our listeners how many people pronounce it milk versus milk, because Kyle has revealed himself as definitively as a milk person.
He's the only one I know who does that.
I've never denounced.
Really? Oh, I know. I've heard other people say it that way.
Part of Kyle's tribe that you've discovered in the wilderness.
Yeah, I'll have to connect you.
Well, I think we can all agree that people drink warm milk are just...
Warm milk's great, too.
Not to be fucked with, which, case in point.
I ever had like a warm glass of milk before bed?
No.
This is completely different than having one while you're in bed, obviously.
Which is a completely another scenario.
I don't drink a lot of milk. I eat cereal on occasion, and I'll drink milk with cookies on occasion or brownies. But other than that, unless it's like I'm baking or something, I don't use milk a lot.
I'm off milk completely. I only use oat milk, which is in fact the goat milk.
Need to say that.
See, I crave it. Not just goat milk, not just oat milk, all milk.
You see udders in your dreams? All right. Well, we're not here to talk about milk, if you would believe it. We are here to talk about the All-Stars of the NBA. And I'd like to start with the East. Anyone have any objections?
No, it's probably the easiest.
Good. So for my starters, personally, I have 3 locks, and I'm guessing you guys do as well. Embiid at center or forward. Giannis and Durant is my other forwards. Do you guys agree there?
Yeah.
I have 3 locks too. Probably actually 4 locks.
Okay,
well, we all know the 4th lock is.
Yeah, his 4th lock is Harden. I have Harden as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't really get so. Okay, so let's first talk about the forwards that are locks. I mean, these guys are having great seasons. Yeah. Embiid is perhaps one of the front runners for MVP. He is. Giannis. I mean, it doesn't matter what he averages. He's not going to win a 3rd straight MVP, but he probably should be in the discussion for it. And Durant, though he's missed a few games, this is peak Durant, which, you know, we didn't know if we're going to get after the Achilles, and we have, which has been great this season. So I think those 3 are just no-brainers. Lock them in.
I did question myself when I clicked Giannis to be a starter. I don't think he's been like anything exceptional this year. He's been his normal self.
Yeah, he's only averaging 28, 11, and 6. What do you – I mean –
I just feel like I watch a lot of games and it's like – yeah, I mean, I wasn't not going to put him in there, but when I clicked it, I was like, there might be a case. There's not.
Yeah,
more likely there's not. But
I don't know if it's because of Drew Holiday's running the team or what, but like eye test wise, he just seems less impactful this year. Maybe that's a good thing, and maybe it'll help them in the playoffs. You know?
Yeah, I agree. That's the thing. It's like I feel like he's not doing nearly as much as he was in the past. I don't know why. I mean, his numbers are still astounding, but. Yeah, I think definitely like Drew and Middleton's kind of carried over what he did like in the bubble last year into the actual season, and it's really taken a lot of the eyes off of Giannis when you watch the game. I feel like.
Yeah, so those 3 are locks. I have Harden in as well. I can see some people say I don't have him in as a starter because of what he did earlier this year. In Houston.
What do you mean what he did? He was still putting up all-star numbers in Houston too. So
okay, he was bad in Houston, but I forgive him. I don't forgive him, but I still think he's an all-star. Seth, would you like to make the opposite case?
I would, yeah. I do not have him as a starter for the following reasons. I think all-star, the way I look at it, is looking at how well they've performed this season so far. And I think Harden was a net negative for Houston, where because he wasn't trying, and our good friend Draymond Green said in a press conference yesterday, verifying, you know, he said that no one would argue that he was dogging it. And I said, Draymond, have you met Kyle Olsen? And so, you know, his teammates called him out on it. Other players in the league have admitted that he wasn't trying, right? He's apologized to how things went. So obviously I think he's one of the 5 best players in the East. But for the All-Star award, being selected to the All-Star game is about how much of an impact you've made for your team so far this season. And I think when you compare Harden's contributions to his team over the course of this year to Bradley Beal or Jaylen Brown, who I have starting, who have been, you know, the anchors for their teams and been enormously positive contributions consistently throughout the year, I think Harden falls short. He still made the All-Star team, but I just feel like I can't reward just not trying for a few weeks because he wants to be traded with a starting spot in the All-Star game. So,
Kyle, I'll give a soft rebuttal on your behalf before you really dive in here, because for me, it's like I hear a lot of people in the media saying like, I'm going to I'm going to punish him by not having him start the All-Star game, but I'm still going to make him an All-Star. And for me, it's like if I'm going to vote him to go to the All-Star game, I know he's better than every one of the reserves that I have there. So it's just being foolish of me, I feel, to not make him a starter if I'm going to have him in the game in general. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like if I were voting him All NBA and I say, oh, I was going to vote him second team, but since he did that, and he was number one third team. Like, I think if I'm going to have him in the All-Star game, I should have him at the level of player he is, I guess.
I mean, you mentioned he's a top 5 player in the East. You picked 5 starters. We locked in three forwards already. So,
right. So what I'm saying is, I'm viewing the All-Star.
Shouldn't you only account for what he's done in the Eastern Conference? If he's an Eastern Conference All-Star?
I don't think of it that way. I mean, I guess some people might. But then you could say, well, he only played so many games in the East, so he's not as valuable, right?
It is such a weird thing. Like, I can't remember the last time this happened where someone that good got traded to another
cross conferences.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen often. And like I said, I view it as your contributions this year, right? Where it's not about the legacy of how good you are. You don't get extra points for having made it in the past. I just think of it as how much you've contributed to your team this year. So I feel like, even with dogging it in, as Draymond would say, for part of the year, he's still made more positive contribution overall to his team than, most players in the league, which is why he makes the All-Star game for me. But I don't think his contributions rise to the level that Beal and Brown.
I just noticed while looking up his stats that he's a junior, and we don't talk about that enough. James Edward Harden Jr.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
This changes everything. I'm a Harden fan now.
Do you know Jason Tatum and Bradley Beal, who are famously very close friends that have known each other for years? They both named their sons after themselves, right? So their sons are juniors. And they both call their sons Deuce. So it's like, if you're such good friends, you're really going to both name your son. I mean, they didn't name their son the same name, but they both call him Deuce. Like, wouldn't that be confusing?
Yeah, Kyle, I'm just going to call my kid whatever you call your kid.
It works. You never forget, though.
Yeah, exactly. That's
I
true.
guess you don't get their name wrong, yeah.
You call them, they both come, so you know where they both are. Okay, well, I think we all knew that was what we're going to argue most about is Harden.
Yeah.
So Kyle and I have him as a starter. Kyle, who is your other guard starter?
It was a really tough decision. I wavered back and forth for countless seconds between Kyrie and Bradley Beal. Ultimately, I chose Beal, but I think there's definitely a case for the big three of Brooklyn to start in the All-Star game.
I think there's a case for, in my opinion, Kyrie, Beal, or Jaylen Brown, who I have as my second guard. I'd like to talk about Beal right now. It's outrageous what's happening right now in the media. All these media members are acting like they voted for him last year when he didn't even make the All-Star game last year. He is literally having the same exact year this year, just 3 points per game better. His team went from a 347 winning percentage to a 292 winning percentage. His team is way worse. And now every media member is penciling him in as a starter without even discussing it. Now, to be clear, I thought he should have made the team last year, and I think he should make it this year. A starter neither year for me. But
I'm pretty sure
they're acting like nothing happened.
I'm fairly certain the most underrated superstar in the league. And I don't know why.
Me and Tyler just both nodded. We have nothing to say.
Yeah, I mean,
he's easily one of the best scorers in the league. I feel like he's Devin Booker's so beloved in the West. I feel like he's better. He's the better version, the better Eastern Conference version of Devin Booker.
Definitely.
Yeah. Sam and I talked about this a couple weeks ago we had earlier, brainstorming, okay, who are the best two guards in the league?
And we forgot Beal,
sometimes it depends on how you define a two guard, right?
Yeah.
Like, actually, right now,
I don't even know what
Harden is
difference
playing
between a one and a two guard is
Kyrie's
anymore these days.
Yeah. So, anyways, but we were like, well, James Harden, I guess, if he counts, would be number one, and then it's like Booker, I guess. And yeah, we realized later, like, oh, Bradley Beal is definitely better than Booker.
Right. Yeah.
Sam, I think we had this conversation last year that Beal definitely should have made it, and it didn't make sense that he was that good of a scorer. And maybe it's just a one more year of people feeling sorry for him, and clearly, whoever he hires for his PR needs a raise, because he's worked wonders over the last year, right? Apparently we went as a media general entity, like went from saying, oh, well, we can't put him in the All-Star game because his team is terrible and he doesn't play defense. And now things really haven't changed much, but he's a starter. So
I just think I think what it is everyone feels bad that they fucked up last year, but it's just disingenuous by them, and I won't stand for it. Simply put, someone's got to call it out.
Sitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think he should have made it last year, and I think when you lead the league in scoring, it makes sense that you're a starter. So I don't have a problem with him starting.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with him starting. I had Brown slightly over him because just because of the defensive element of it. Brown is such an elite defender, and he's averaging 26 and 6 and 3 this year. Really made a huge leap forward. But I wouldn't have a problem with Beal or Kyrie starting.
Cares about defense in the All-Star game?
In the actual game that's played, no one. But to select them, which is, let's even see if an All-Star game gets played this year, right, guys? Because LeBron himself said he's not for it. So
I mean, it makes no sense.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
I digress. It's another day.
He digresses. Yeah. He's got to get on the treadmill. He's ready. He's trying to speed through this.
It's true.
Okay, so let's talk about Kyrie, because some people I think didn't have him starting or even on the All-Star team because he missed those 2 weeks. But same thing with kind of similar to Harden for me. It's like I know he's one of the best players in the league. I mean, he's averaging 28, 5, and 6 on 53, 44, 92. Is that good? Are those good splits?
So, Sam, why don't you have him starting?
Has there ever been a team that's had 3 players shoot 50, 40, 90?
No, not even close.
Because Brooklyn might have that happen this year.
Steph, Kelly Oubre, Draymond this year?
Right. Kelly Oubre could hit every single shot for the rest of the season, and he still wouldn't have be able to make those thresholds based on the way he started the season.
So to answer your question earlier, I do not have Kyrie starting because I just like Jalen a little better. But like I said, if you had Kyrie or Beal starting, I wouldn't say no. I just
don't get you made the argument that Harden should start.
Mm-hmm.
And that, even though he had mailed it in for part of the season, when it comes down to it, you just know he's better. So if he's not disqualified completely, then he should start. So why does that argument not apply to Kyrie?
I think because to me, Harden is better than Kyrie, and I thought Brown was slightly better than Kyrie. So it's not a question of him missing the 2 weeks.
So you think Brown's just a better player than Kyrie overall?
Right now, yeah.
Okay.
I think this season I've liked his game more, but I don't know. Now that I said that loud, that seems kind of silly, so maybe that's not true. I don't know. There's just a couple of really good guards in the East now. Like the way this team has been hard to start to set the starters really makes you notice how much talent has migrated over to the East. I feel like,
Definitely.
I feel like it's a lot
East
more
is deeper than I thought.
this year
Yeah.
Between the two.
All right, let's go to the reserves. So starting, we went over that. Reserves, I have 4 locks for my reserves, 2 soft locks, and then 1 that you guys can talk me into any player, and I probably wouldn't say no. So my 4 locks for reserves, and you guys can tell me if you have the same ones: Tatum, Middleton, Bam, and Kyrie. So for you guys, that would be whatever guard you weren't starting, right? Not Kyrie. So Kyle, for you,
say
that would be.
Wait, Sam, did you say Beal?
Oh yeah, Beal's a soft lock.
So that's like one of those padlocks, like someone could cut it if they had like bolt cutters.
Yeah, but it's unlikely. You'd have to be really prepared.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I didn't separate them into locks, soft locks, and I'm not really sure. But I do have all those players on my team that you mentioned.
Kyle, any arguments with them?
Can you list your players again? I was trying to go with the locks, the soft locks, the hard locks, to lock them up, throw away the keys. I couldn't quite grasp everything you mentioned.
Okay, I got it. Okay, so lock. This is like people that are. This is like a vault.
You could leave the locks and the soft locks out of it. I just need to know the people.
Okay, so Tatum, Middleton, Bam, Kyrie, and Beal.
So I already had Beal.
So for you, the Beal spot would be Brown.
Correct. Middleton, you had him as a lock, I think, if I remember correctly. It wasn't a lock for me, but he's in there.
Middleton, I don't know.
Sometimes I would have put like my lock over Beal or over Middleton would have been Sabonis.
Okay, I want to discuss Sabonis, but first let's discuss Middleton, because sometimes I think he's overrated, sometimes I think he's underrated, and then sometimes I realize he's the ugliest player in the NBA, and we don't talk about it enough.
How does he both at the same time have the biggest lips and the biggest gums and the biggest teeth?
He looks like a fish.
Oh, poor Chris.
So this year he's averaging 26 and 6. I feel like his playmaking has gone up a level. Am I wrong there? Doesn't it seem like that just watching the Bucks? Kind of part of what we were saying earlier with Giannis having less usage, right?
It definitely has. And I think a lot of it also has to do with the fact, like, late game, they're definitely deferring to him over Giannis, which is, I think, another one of those, a point that I didn't mention earlier, but kind of on that.
As they should.
Yeah, right. Exactly. He can shoot the basketball.
Seems like a good prerequisite for last second shots. Also, I don't know if you guys know this, but two of his nicknames include WD-40 and Baby Joe Johnson.
Baby Joe Johnson, that's an interesting one.
I mean, unless Joe Johnson is an adult fish, I don't see how that's true. But so why would you say Chris isn't a lock for you, Kyle?
He's in there.
Okay.
Right. I think he's for sure an all-star. He wasn't a lock for the next 4 players after the initial 5.
I got you. Yeah, that's fair. Let's have the Sabonis conversation now. I see a lot of slander in the streets that Vucevic deserves to be an all-star and Sabonis does not. And I'm here to squash that slander, because I mean, what do you want here, right? I mean, Sabonis is averaging 2 less points per game, but 2 more assists per game, and is the hub of his offense. And the Pacers are what? I think they're the 5 seed now. They're the 4 seed now.
Yeah, the 4.
And the Magic are the 12 seed. So I mean, what are we even talking about here, right? I feel like that's not a good argument. He has definitely tailed off a bit in the past weeks, but I just feel like he's the best player on that team, and they're a 4 seed, and I think he deserves to be in there.
Yeah, I mean, Vooch, it's not that he's not an all-star. I think he's an all-star caliber player too. But, I mean, when you can have the Saboner, you got to have the boner.
Seth, where do you land on that?
Well, if both of them are listening right now, I would let them know that I think Vooch is the far superior player and that we value him in Boston. And
wait a second.
He should really consider telling his team that he prefer. Am I tampering right now? Yeah, I have Sabonis as my last player in, but he made the team. I think he's a bit better defensively than Vooch, and it's hard because like Vooch is their whole team, because the Magic are just complete ass other than him. But Sabonis still plays such a big role for the Pacers and is such a fulcrum of their offensive scheme. So I just think when it comes down to it, like I'd rather have Sabonis if I was an NBA franchise. So I think he's better.
Yeah. It's as simple as that sometimes. So I guess we have the same first 6 reserves. Shocking for this podcast. So now it comes down to the last player. I think we all know who I have. I think we all know who Kyle has. Seth, who do you have?
I might have the same person Sam has.
Okay, Kyle,
I
you
have
go
Ben
first
Simmons.
then. Oh, me too. Kyle?
Spoilers.
I had Ben Simmons too.
Oh,
My God.
okay, good. I was
It
going
was
to maybe.
it was really tough though. It was really
Yeah.
tough. I really wanted to put Trey in there, but
I was going to try
over Ben, so I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I was going to try. I was going to allow you guys to maybe talk me out of Ben or Sabonis, but I'm glad you didn't even attempt. I mean, as you know, Ben Simmons is my heart and soul, and it probably would be my defensive player of the year.
He's definitely in my opinion, he's the defensive player of the year.
We talk about this all the time, how
no question.
I don't want to go Bear, in the playoffs. I want a Simmons, right? Someone who can defend those small point guards and wing players. So yeah, I agree. I agree with you guys. I think the defense, the man, he scored 42 the other day, right?
Last night
when Embiid wasn't
they
playing.
played him at the 5, and he was a absolute monstrosity. It was unstoppable almost.
Which again,
they lost, but
yeah, and it brings up the point, like, if those two were on separate teams, what would that look like, right? Like, how good could Ben be on his own team? Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think I've said this before. I think that Ben Simmons should be like a slightly different version of Bam, where you don't expect him to shoot threes. You don't expect him to shoot jumpers, really. I mean, Bam has some mid-range game, but he's running
threes recently.
Right. He's running the offense. He's playing incredible defense. He's rebounding and scoring around the rim, right? And Simmons could even do more like fast break, leading the fast break, making passes in the open court even better than Bam can. So I don't see why he can't do that. And then it's like, instead, everyone wants him to be LeBron, just like Giannis wants to be LeBron when Giannis should really be Shaq. But anyways, I still think Simmons, I'd just rather have him on my team than like the Trae Young types, the Zach LaVine types. And I just decided I'm not going to put those, what I see is mostly empty calories, where it's high volume scoring, but
LaVine's been doing a lot better,
bad and they don't play defense.
In other facets of the game, he has improved a lot.
Yeah, I feel like people who don't live in Chicago don't realize this as much, and of course, he didn't make my team either. But this is the first year I think where he's just made huge strides playmaking and on defense. I mean, he's never going to be a plus defender, but
why not?
Because he's just not that. He doesn't have like the mind for it. I don't know. Like he tries. It seems like he cares, but like he just doesn't get it sometimes. I don't know, but he's been a little better on that end. I mean, he's averaging 28,
but his playmaking has been like,
yeah,
light years better. Galaxy's better. Light years better.
Yeah, I think that's part of the frustration with the defense is that he has the body and the quickness for it, and so it's like, why can't he just figure it out? But
it's like the hardest part about basketball, though.
Yeah, and he's averaging 28, 5 and 5 on 52% from 2, or 52% overall, and 43% from 3. Like, I think maybe the knock on him earlier in his career was he wasn't efficient. A, B, not good off the ball, and C, not good at defense. I feel
like everyone early in his career just thought like he was just like a high profile athlete dunker, and that's all he could do. And he's not. Like, he can get a bucket from anywhere on the court.
Yeah, I feel like people haven't realized that he's like elite shooter now, like elite, and backdoor cutting might be his best skill, like off ball. And yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. Like I've had this conversation with Seth recently too. Like, what would he look like on a good team, right? If he was in Jamal Murray's spot, let's say, what would he look like? And I think he could fit that role. I do. But I just couldn't reward him this year with. There's only so many players on bad teams I could fit in here, and I already have Beal in there, so I couldn't fit Trey or him in. That's really what it came down to.
Question for y'all before we move to the West. If it were positionless, would you have anyone else in your starting lineup? Because I would have Tatum instead of Jalen, personally.
Yeah, I probably would too. I don't know. They're so Brown and Tatum. That's funny because they're playing the same team. They're just so close this year.
Yeah, I'd probably do the same. Actually, I would probably have Tatum over Beal.
Yeah. So maybe they should go to the positional. See. Any other tough cuts you want to discuss?
Nah, I feel like the East is kind of
Once you get past Trey
consolidated,
and
yeah.
Well, I would say, sorry, real quick. So
yeah,
we were talking about aging as well as refined milk, and then we went on a whole milk tangent. But I was also going to bring up, I watched this little clip on ESPN of the end of last year's All-Star game, which is exciting thanks to the Elam ending. And one of the players who was playing like in crunch time was Pascal Siakam. And I was like, wow, how much has changed since then? And Kemba was too, but that I feel like is more injury.
Yeah.
Driving the change. But that was just like kind of staggering to see him out there. Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah, no Raptors I'd even strongly considered.
Maybe, I mean, Lowry is like honorable mention, maybe, but I wouldn't consider him.
I feel like Van Vliet's a better case than Lowry, even.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, he couldn't make it with everyone else in the East.
Yeah, maybe if he had another kid.
He's saving it. He's saving it for the playoffs.
Yeah. All right, let's move to the Wild Wild West. This one was tough. I'm not gonna lie. If you got so for me, it's funny. The 5 starters, and then I have 4 locks. Like absolute, like these 9 players had to make the All-Star team, and after that, you could tell me anyone, and I wouldn't really argue with you. That being said, let's argue about it. So my locks for starters: Jokic, LeBron, Kawhi. Again, I think the forwards are a lock in the West. You guys agree with that?
I think all 5 are locks to start.
So the real question is...
I bet we have a disagreement, yeah.
The real question is Steph versus Luka versus Dame for those 2 spots. I mean, we all know... I mean, basically those 3 all deserve to be starting if we had the spots.
That's exactly how I had it, because the 6th man was the one of those 3 that didn't make my start.
Yeah. So I don't really care who you put in. I have Steph and Luka, but I mean, if you put Dame in the starting lineup, I'm not going to argue with you. So
I had Steph and Luka as well.
I figured that was going to be the case. So allow me to give the argument for Dame, which is I felt like razor thin margin between them. Luka obviously gives you more rebounding. They're both kind of so-so at defense. Luka's maybe a bit better just because of his size. But I would just been so impressed with what Dame has been able to do to keep the Trailblazers afloat throughout this stretch this season where they lost their second and third best players, and somehow they're still in the standings. They're at this point we're recording this, they're 16-10, right in the middle of the pack in the Western Conference, and Dallas is below 500 and out of the playoffs. So, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of on the same page. Like, you could definitely put Luka in, but just with the way he's been able to carry his team and his usual excellent clutch performances, I gave Dame the slight edge there. But
I will say that the Trailblazers' schedule since they lost CJ has been a breeze. And I think they're basically even in what's the stat that you've scored more points than the other team? I don't know why I can't think of it.
Point differential?
Point differential, thank you. So I think it's a little maybe smoke and mirrors that they're that high up in the West. But yeah, I mean, to even do that without CJ and Nurk is astounding.
So I mean, their schedule has been a breeze, but wouldn't you think that playing Portland without CJ and Nurk would be an easy win?
Good point. But they did play they played like the Knicks twice, the Thunder, the Wizards, the Cavs. They did like their little tour of the bottom of the East. So,
I mean, the Knicks aren't in the bottom of the East. They're the 6th seed.
6th seed in the East equals ass. It's a real slap fight down there.
Okay.
But yeah, no, your point is well taken. And I said I wouldn't argue if anyone put Dame in their starters.
And that you did. You lying son of a bitch.
The listeners need content. Okay, so I think we all have that third guard as our reserves. My next locks are PG, Anthony Davis, and Gobert. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with Anthony Davis since he's injured. Maybe they'll vote for someone else. I don't know how that works, but
yeah, I know sometimes they'll make it and then they'll have someone else replace to actually play in the game. But I bet this is where a big Gobert argument comes in with Kyle.
He's not on my list at all. He didn't make the All-Star game. Not a fucking
I'm not
chance.
surprised.
He's worthless. Do you really want to watch a player that can't shoot outside of 5 feet from the basket in the All-Star game? I don't give a shit. I want sparks. I want it high flying. I want it going. I want threes from the logo.
So you draft your All-Star players thinking of aesthetically what you want to see in the game?
No, not always, but when it comes to Rudy Gobert, definitely.
Also, I'm looking at his stats right now, and one of his nicknames is the Gobert Rapport, which I don't know why we don't say more often. Yeah.
So while you're compiling the stats, I'll just say I think Gobert has played his usual excellent defense, right? Defensive player of the year caliber defense. Maybe we'd have Ben Simmons right over him right now, whatever. And the Jazz are the best team in the league.
Not thanks to Gobert.
I think in large part due to Rudy Gobert's play. Now, he's not the typical focal point of the offense, certainly, but I think if you analyze Utah's play a little bit closer, a lot of what they do is built around having at least the threat of a lob to Gobert. And this year, Conley and Gobert have really connected. And Mike Conley said, last year it was all new to me because I was never throwing alley-oops to Marc Gasol. So that was just not really a part of my game before. And so now that he's added that in and they've developed that chemistry, I think that's been a big reason for their success. And Gobert, you can say he's just not a good offensive player, right? And he can't shoot, but he is still a lethal threat in the pick and roll, rolling to the basket, 7-foot guy who's nimble with great hands, who can jump and finish around the rim. And then you combine that with his rebounding and all defensive play and blocking shots, contesting at the rim. For me, he was a no-brainer as a reserve on the West. But Kyle, I think, has different philosophies when it comes to team construction than we do.
I mean, I don't disagree that Rudy Gobert is a good player. He is, but I don't think I've seen a lot of arguments too on social media of how Rudy Gobert is hands down the Jazz's best player and stuff. And it's I don't understand why people are so reluctant or don't want to say that Donovan Mitchell is hands down the best player on that team. And I really think a lot of their success this year, one, like you said, has to do, Mike Conley looks like I don't know where this nimble Mike Conley came from before he got injured, but he's looked so spry, so young, getting buckets like it's nobody's business. And then they have, who's probably, I think, might be my front runner for 6th man of the year, Jordan Clarkson. Where he came off the bench the other night and scored 40-something points. He didn't add another stat to to his stat sheet. Didn't need to. So I think a lot of their success really hinges on the 3 guards, but then outside of that, the playmaking ability of Ingles and Bogdanovich too has been allowing those 3 guys to play off the ball confidently and all three of them, good spot up shooters, good cutters. Like, honestly, you could run those three guards and Bogdanovich and Ingles and probably still get away with it. The defense definitely wouldn't be great
right
down low, but I think that five could really compete with scoring with any other, pretty much any other team in the league besides like the Nets.
And this is the beauty of the Jazz, right? We're talking about the best team in the league, and you can have an argument about who their best player is, right? Because they have 6 solid to great players, right? And they all fit together perfectly. And I do not agree with with John Hollinger's statement that he should be third in MVP voting by any means, but I do think he deserves a spot in the All-Star team. But this is the conundrum for me as I get further down to my reserves. Let's call it the Jazz paradox. Who am I going to put in there, right? So right now I have Mitchell in as a reserve as well. Do I put Conley as well? Do I have 3 Jazz in there? Is Conley going to be the greatest player to never make an All-Star team? If he doesn't this year, this might be his last chance.
That seems like quite a stretch to make that statement.
That what?
I'd have to also like compile a list of players that have never made the All-Star team because
obviously you didn't come to this podcast prepared if you don't have that in front of you.
Mike Conley makes a strong case, believe me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's easily him. I'm Googling it right now, though. Don't worry.
JaVale McGee's never made an All-Star game.
Oh, shit, I didn't think about that. Brent Barry.
So either way.
Mike Bibby.
Bibby, yeah.
Conley's way better than Mike Bibby.
They're honestly the same person.
Mike Conley rock a headband like Mike Bibby can? I don't think so.
Oh, yeah, he's easily got it. The other ones are like Marcus Camby, Jamal Crawford.
Jamal Crawford, though.
Yeah, they're all like role players or specialty players. It's like Jamal is just a scorer. Marcus Camby like got a lot of blocks. He's a good post defender. Mike Conley was like second best player on a Western Conference Finals team, like consistently solid play for a decade. And
I'm not doubt. Yeah,
so many good guards.
That just seemed like a wild statement at the time because, like I said, I don't have the list of players I haven't made an All-Star game in the entire career or the entire
history of the NBA.
History, that's the word I was looking for. There you go. Thank you. So yeah, I don't have Gobert. I got Donovan Mitchell though.
We may need to rethink this because Josh Smith is on this list of best players never to make an All-Star game.
He had like one good
best
game,
player in
right?
history. Yeah. Okay, so you have Mitchell, not Gobert. Do you have Mitchell as well?
Right now, I do. Right now, I have all 3 of them, I think. But you could talk me out.
So what you have? So then you would have all 3 of those Jazz, Lillard, or you had Luka, right? Luka and AD, and then one other player that we haven't talked about yet.
PG, and then
PG. That's right.
That's it, right? No, and one more player.
I have one more. Yeah.
Okay. So let's have the conversation about Conley real quick before we move on, because I tried to get him in for sentimental reasons that we just discussed. And I just couldn't
get there. One more player though. He has one of the guards. Who do you got? Luka, right? Out of the 3 that we talked about at the beginning.
Luka, yeah.
And then Conley, Mitchell, Gobert.
Mm-hmm.
You had AD. Paul George, didn't you? And AD.
Mm-hmm.
That's 6 players. Oh, we're doing 12.
Yeah.
6 + 5 is 11.
Kyle, you can just cut that out for the actual podcast. So make your case for Conley.
Well, yeah, it's hard because, like I said earlier, I don't really believe in, giving someone an all-star spot based on past performance, right? Maybe this is the one exception because he's never made it before, and I just feel like this would kind of right that injustice. But I also feel like if we think about what's different about the Jazz, why are they the number 1 team this year when they haven't been in the past? It's mostly Mike Conley. So
I think it's
putting
Jordan
up
Clarkson.
Certainly, I don't want to undermine or undervalue what Jordan Clarkson has done. But I just feel like Conley's been awesome this year, and I don't know. I just am impressed by the connection that he's gotten with Gobert this year, and the way that he runs that offense. But I think it's true, like, statistically, he doesn't have the best case. This year, he's averaging 16.5 points, almost 6 assists, and he's shooting 41% from three. So that's certainly good.
Yeah.
Like I said, I could be convinced away from Conley, but I guess I'm feeling a little sentimental. He has a soft spot. One of the many soft spots in my heart is occupied right now by Mike Conley.
Yeah, I never knew you were such a Mike Conley fan.
Yeah, my goodness. I kind of felt like I had to pick one Jazz guard, and Kyle maybe felt that way too. So I picked Mitchell. I just think 24.
I didn't feel like I had to. I just felt like he was deserving.
Yeah, I mean, he's 24, 4, and 5 for a 1 seed, and it's interesting. A lot of his minutes have been without Gobert this year. They really kind of pair Conley with Gobert, so I think he's had to carry a load without that pick and roll presence that's as effective. So I think he is deserving. Kyle, who else do you have on your reserves?
So let's cross off the players that we all had again, compared with my list. So I think I have the most differing list.
Yeah.
Lillard.
Yep.
Anthony Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Paul George. Mitchell.
Yep.
I think we all had those.
And then Seth and I have Gobert.
Right. I did not. Seth also has Conley. So this is where I think the three of us differ the most, is these last 2 to 3 spots. 3 for me.
And in the West, I mean, there's like 15 candidates for this. So.
Right. So 2 of my last 3 players, their teams currently are not in the playoffs, but I think that at least they make a push and make the play-in. And I don't think that really matters anyways. I'm just letting you know to make you wonder who it could be. It's quite obviously Zion and De'Aaron Fox. What more do you need?
I think those are both deserving candidates. So, I almost dismissed Zion out of hand just because of his defense. And then I reconsidered, but I still didn't put him in the end.
I think he falls into the Zach LaVine category for me right now, where great offensive scorer, but he just hasn't picked up enough on the defensive end. And I've seen too many times where he's standing on the basket, someone else shoots, he looks up at the ball, and then another player comes in and grabs the rebound away from him instead of
boxes out. That's what he does. He does box out. He boxes out for the other players.
Right. So, so that's why I don't have him in. Initially I thought Fox, and you could definitely argue statistically that he takes over the Conley spot in my roster. But then I was looking at the stats between Fox and your boy, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
He was a tough one for me.
And I couldn't really find an argument for Fox over Shai. And then I thought about, well, is Shai really better than Chris Paul? No.
This was my conundrum as well.
So
we haven't even brought up Chris Paul. Yeah, we haven't brought him up yet. He's a soft lock for me. He has a little padlock on him.
Yeah, Chris Paul was my last guy in.
Okay, I felt like I had to pick a Suns guard, right? I mean, the team's doing so well, so it really comes down to if you want to pick Booker or CP3, and I just think Chris Paul does more for that team, you know?
Yeah,
right.
I don't know.
So
I think
it comes down to, like, for me is like, if we all agree on Chris Paul, then there's one spot left for Mike Conley or De'Aaron Fox or Shea, or maybe you take out Mitchell and you put in one of those guys, right? So I feel like everyone was so close. I was like, who's the best? Who would I want the most out of that bunch? And I think it's Mitchell and Conley.
Yeah, I have Shea in as my last spot right now. I mean, he's averaging 23, 6, and 7, and playing great defense. That's kind of what pushed him over Zion for me. But like, so right now in those last 3 spots, I have CP3, Mitchell, and SGA. But it hurts to leave Zion, Booker, Conley, Fox, and Ingram even out as well, you know? And dare I say DeRozan has to be mentioned.
You dare not.
It's just very deep when you get to those last reserves, you know? Like, I don't really have a problem with any of those guys making it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I really thought I would have Fox in, but now I don't know.
Yeah. I wrote down SGA multiple times and scratched him out multiple times just because nothing against him. The team's just like tanking. And, you know, I think a lot of it has to do too with like, I feel like a lot of their games have been postponed and stuff. So I end up not watching any of their stuff. Don't get me wrong. He's like one of my favorite players, obviously. But I've watched a ton of Pelicans games instead of OKC games this year. And Zion is definitely like, he's grown a lot from last year. And while like he doesn't have like wild assist numbers or anything, he's only averaging like 2.5 assists. He does it like he's a lot more of a contributor on the ball handling side this year. Like, I think if we would to look up like the amount of secondary assists, like I think like if you were to do like hockey assists, I think Zion would definitely be up there in the West in regards to that. Like, he sets up players to set up other players really well. And he's just like, he's a force. I mean, I think Steven Adams like really kind of has stolen a lot of, you know, you mentioned about the rebounding and stuff. Like, Steven Adams, what is he averaging? I haven't even looked recently. It's got to be like, what, 11, 12 rebounds a game or something? I think he's stealing a lot of Zion stuff because Zion is just like not even.
Can't be that many, can it? Maybe 9.
I feel like it's
actually. I think I was gonna pick him up in fantasy the other day, and it was like 9 rebounds.
I feel like.
So yeah, it was like Zion or SGA. I had a lot of guards already. Not that it really should matter.
Yeah.
But.
And I think maybe I'm just overthinking with Zion because I'm looking at PER right now, and he's at 25.7. He's 8th in the whole league in PER. Like, am I just overthinking this? Like, you know, he has such a gravitational pull on offense, and he's just so dominant on that end that I think it does just raise the team up any more than his defense can hurt it, you know? Maybe I'll put him in over SGA.
If anything,
I mean, I want to see him in
Mike Conley or Rudy Gobert.
Well, I don't have Conley, and I would never.
Then take out Gobert. Zion is
honestly for aesthetic reasons. Inserting Zion in right for Gobert. Can you imagine how that would boost the rating of the game?
I saw someone mention this the other day, and it's if you were to replace Gobert with like obviously Bam. If you replace him with Bam, hands down, is the best team in the league. I think the entire league.
I don't think it would be that much of an upgrade. I don't know. I mean,
they are the best team in the league, so I don't know how much more you want them to do.
Right.
Like, Bam's better than Gobert, but I don't know how much better they can get, really.
I think just the team aesthetically would just be so much better.
They'd definitely be more fun to watch.
I just hate Gobert, especially since he's the one that shut down basketball last year, that bastard. I'll never forgive him.
All right, well, that's our All-Stars. I don't even remember who we all had, so no, probably our listeners don't either, but I think that was a spirited discussion. We'll see if we have a game, but those are our players that we have in.
Hopefully we don't.
Early MVP, who you guys got? I'm taking LeBron.
Okay, can I make one? I have one interesting comment about MVP. I would probably have LeBron as well. But but it's one of those things that's like, what even is MVP? But I thought it was interesting how many players right now are having almost the same season that they had when they won an MVP, right? So LeBron, right? He's basically having like one of his MVP seasons when he won MVP a few years ago, right? KD, you could argue, is playing basically his same game just as well as he was back in, 2014 when he won or something?
Something like that.
16, something like that. Giannis, you could argue, is basically playing the same, maybe one step less than last 2 years. Steph
okay,
is
listen to
basically
this.
playing, the numbers are almost identical to his like back-to-back unanimous MVP.
His unanimous MVP season, he was averaging 30.1 points per game on 66.9 true shooting. Guess what he's doing this year? 30.1 points per game, 66.9 true shooting. Obviously, his team's way worse, but it's just funny to your point.
Yeah. So it's, and then we haven't even mentioned maybe the two front runners, Embiid and Jokic. So it's like, it really is a crowded field for MVP, and it's not even halfway through the season, so it's way too early to really like legislate this. But I just thought, I was reflecting on that earlier today and thought it was interesting.
Kyle, who you have? LeBron? Jokic?
It's truly like a straight toss-up. Like, I feel like 33% between each of them, between LeBron, Embiid, and Jokic. To think that I'd ever have two centers as MVP front runners, obviously, I thought Jokic would do it all along. But
I mean, to think you really have three centers as front runners, because you have Gobert in there as well, I believe.
Off with his head.
All right, well, that's been another episode of Sportball. Hope you all enjoyed it. Any last thoughts, guys?
I can't wait till Gobert doesn't make the All-Star game, and I just get to Gobert and Conley, honestly.
Remember to drink your milk warm, children.
Never Sub-Zero.